Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another episode of Buha's Block. On today's show, we're going to be discussing 5 ways to save the Lakers season, 5 adjustments that they should make in Game 5 that will help them extend this series to a Game 6 and potentially to a Game 7. And potentially to an improbable 3-1 series comeback. But to do so, the Lakers are going to have to adjust, and they're going to have to do some things that they have done at times during this series and just do them more consistently, or do some things they have not done at all, which I'm a little skeptical of, but we'll see. We'll see how drastic the changes are going into Game 5. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Enough with the prelude. Let's get into it. Adjustment number 1 for me is going to be start Dorian Finney-Smith over Jackson Hayes. Go with the lineup that JJ Redick closed Game 4 with. Don't play them for an entire half. Don't play them all 48 minutes in Game 5. But clearly, Dorian Finney-Smith has been a more impactful player than Jackson Hayes in this series. The lineup data backs it up. The eye test backs it up. The 5-out spacing has stretched out the Timberwolves. And as we saw in that third quarter, when the Lakers outscored them 36-23, their highest scoring quarter in the series, they were able to attack their hedging and blitzing. I still don't understand why Minnesota went to hedging and blitzing. And if they do that again, I think the Lakers will pick them apart again. So I don't think they will. But if they do, in that case, the Lakers can spam pick and pop opportunities, short roll opportunities for 3-on-2, 4-on-3 advantages, and generate a lot of good offense that way. And then from a rim protection standpoint, I think DFS has actually been the better defender, better rim protector, and better rebounder than Jackson Hayes in this series. So I don't think you lose anything. Obviously, you lose raw size and length and athleticism, but DFS makes up for it in other ways. So I think this is their best lineup. It's played 70 minutes. It is a -9 over the course of the series. But if you think about, had JJ made a sub, had he subbed in Gabe Vincent late in the third, early in the fourth, had he subbed in anybody else, that group I think would have a better plus minus, because after that third quarter, they were actually +4 in 58 minutes. And then they ended up getting thrashed in the fourth, outscored 32-19. And now they are a -9 in the 70 minutes. So I think that there have been some flashes of this lineup doing well against Minnesota, of course, in the aggregate, -9 in 70 minutes. Now, the Lakers don't have a lot of positive lineups based on being down 3-1 in the series and the series margin being what it is. But interestingly, the highest minute lineup that has done well is Gabe Vincent in Rui's place with the small group. So that's Luka, LeBron, Austin, DFS, and Gabe. And maybe that's a look that we could see a bit more of. And when thinking about potential substitutions, like Gabe could be someone who comes in for Rui, and just seeing a little bit more of that lineup. But I think the low-hanging fruit here is start this lineup, bench Jackson Hayes. I don't think he should play anymore in this series. If he is going to play, I'd be open to him in Luka-centric bench lineups. Even that I'm a little skeptical of. The Lakers just haven't been able to unlock it. I think there are better ways to attack a switching defense, but they just have not been able to figure that out for months now. So I would say go with the 8-man rotation, and I think play that lineup of the Lasers lineup, as JJ likes to call it. First 5 to 6 minutes of the first quarter, first 5 to 6 minutes of the third quarter, last 4 to 5 minutes of the second quarter, and then last 6 to 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. And overall, you're getting about 20 to 22 minutes with those 5 together. And then I think those 5 guys should all be playing in the mid 30s or more. And you are shrinking the bench a little bit, but you're not going to an all-out half with those guys or an all-out game with those guys, but they all should be at around 35 plus minutes. I'm okay with that At this point, I think those are your 5 best players. Those are the 5 guys you're going to go down with, but you need a little bit of balance there from the bench. You need to stagger it a bit. Adjustment number 2 for me is going to be more organized offense. And that is something that I've been talking about ad nauseum on here. Of course, Cranges, for those who follow him on X and those who have listened to him on my show, he's talked about it all season. He talked about it in the series preview, saying he was curious to see JJ's tactical bag and how deep it was and how he was going to counter and adjust within this series. And so far, I think the most disappointing thing for the Lakers has been the offensive end and their inability to figure out the Wolves and their switching defense. And the Wolves are not a team that switched a lot in the regular season. They were more of a coverage team with their bigs, but they've been happy to switch Naz Reid and Julius Randle onto Luka, onto LeBron, onto Austin, and just have them dance with them on the perimeter and stay home with the Lakers role players. And I think that's been a win for the Wolves defense. And even with Rudy, they've been okay with him switching on to an Austin or a Luka, and they played some coverage with that. He's played some drop coverage and been a little bit higher in the drop than usual, which you have to do against Luka. Luka's done his thing, to be clear, and Luka has been awesome. But I think in fourth quarters, especially, the offense has devolved into too much mismatch hunting and iso ball. And I think the Lakers need to get back to running more sets, more stack, more 3-man action with LeBron, Luka, and Austin, more horns, and just involving, I think, Austin and LeBron a little bit more, getting them to get downhill, getting them to create certain advantages, and not just having Luka pick on Minnesota's bigs and then try to make a Herculean play, whether it's him trying to get downhill or create separation for a step back, or get downhill and then generate an advantage and create for a teammate. It's like they're putting a lot on Luka's shoulders in these fourth quarters. And I think they need to lessen the load on him, lessen the burden on him, and get back to some of the offense that they were running down the stretch of the season when it felt like they were finally starting to click and maximize what Luka, LeBron, and Austin all looked like together. And as Cranges will note on his X account, I suggest you all check it out. There is a notable difference between when the Lakers run organized offense versus freelance offense. We're talking about double-digit points per 100 possessions difference between Luka having the ball in organized offense versus freelance LeBron. Down the list, they're all more effective and efficient when they are running plays rather than freelancing or ISO hunting, mismatch hunting. It can be effective in doses. Obviously, you don't want to be completely robotic or predetermined. Even in the fourth quarter of game 4, when the guys were tired, they were fatigued, their legs were heavy, and they didn't have the energy, and shots were falling short, and they weren't getting downhill as much. When they ran plays, they generated good looks. So I think that's a big thing for the Lakers, and might just determine the rest of the series. Like if they can get to 60 plus, 65+% organized offense, I think there's a chance here for them to pull off a potential 3-1 series comeback. If it's more along the lines of sub 50%, as it has been for most of the series up to this point, that's where the Lakers potentially lose in game 5, but maybe survive game 5 and then lose in game 6. So they got to run better stuff offensively, run it more consistently. And I think especially in the fourth quarter, the offense has been far too predictable, far too vanilla and bland. It's basically just space the floor, run a high pick and roll for Luka, and maybe Minnesota screws something up. There's a crack in the defense, and the Lakers are able to find an opening, generate an advantage that way. But for the most part, it's been a lot of not touching the paint, a lot of contested jumpers, and the Lakers are too talented, too skilled, and too smart offensively to just settle in the manner that they have throughout the course of the game, but specifically in these fourth quarters where the game has been close and then Minnesota has just out-executed them and really out-thought them in a lot of these fourth quarters, which is why the margin right now is 105-69 in terms of fourth quarter scoring margin. Adjustment number 3 is mix up looks on Ant. And this is one I've been concerned with for a while. This is one I'm skeptical of them actually changing because they have been a switch everything defense for months. and they have been fine conceding certain switches. And I think in parts of game 4, they were trying to prevent Luka from switching on to Ant. And of course, at the end of the game, they started mixing in some doubles. We saw a similar thing in game 3. Like they have later in games tended to trap, blitz Ant, get the ball out of his hands. However, I think they need to do it more, and they need to mix in some different coverages. So I think when Vando's out there, for example, one, match up Vando with Ant and not have Vando on Julius Randle or Naz Reid. Put him on Ant. He is your best Ant defender. And in those scenarios, if they are going to use Austin or Luka's man to come up and screen for Ant, hedge or show and have Vando recover, or even play drop coverage and have Vando rear view contest and recover from behind, and just don't give up the switch so easily. I think they've been conceding switches to Ant far too often, and it has allowed him to get comfortable. He's able to pick on certain players. He's often calling Luka into the fray, but also Austin, Rui. He's able to dissect the floor, court map, and then know exactly where his teammates are going to be. And then based on how the Lakers switch and which way they force him, he's able to make the simple read or even some more complex reads, which he has progressively done better throughout the course of this series. So I think the Lakers have to just stop switching everything, especially with Ant. I think it's okay to mix in some hedging, some trapping, some blitzing. And I know they've done it at times, but I think it needs to be more frequent, and it almost needs to be like a random, we have 4 ways we're going to cover an Ant screen, and we're going to mix it up, and there's going to be no rhyme or reason necessarily. Like, of course, there are situations where if he catches the ball near half court and the shot clock's winding down, or the game clock's winding down, that's where you want to trap, force the ball out of his hands. Don't even let him get downhill. I also think the Lakers need to be better with their traps. If you go back and watch and see some of the doubling and trapping that they've done, they've let Ant split their doubles and traps. There was one late in the fourth quarter of game 4 where Rui is the one coming over. I believe DFS is on him. Rui comes over for the trap, and he just gets by Rui. And like Rui has to use the sideline there to his advantage, where if Ant is going to go around him, he is going to step out of bounds. But instead, Rui gives him a lane, he darts past him, and then he creates an advantage there. So the Lakers have to be better disciplined with their trapping and their doubling and containing him within that. Like the point of that is to contain him, not for him to slither past you or burst past you, like as he's done several times in this series. So I would mix in some trapping, some blitzing, some hedging. If Minnesota is going to beat you 4-on-3, 3-on-2, you have to be able to concede some of that. But I think right now they're allowing Ant to matchup hunt, and he's doing it at a high level. He's touching the paint in those ISO matchups, in that mismatch hunting, and he is generating advantages, either getting to the rim, getting fouled. He has his mid-range game going where he's stopping, he's pump faking, he's doing that step through one-legged jumper, or he's getting downhill and then finding guys for dump off passes, kick out passes, or he's initiating the Lakers in the blender, and then they are a step or two behind Minnesota, and that's where guys can attack from the weak side, get weak side threes, make him uncomfortable. And if you look at the turnovers, I mean, one, he's got 6 turnovers in 4 games compared to 23 assists. He's averaging basically 6 assists a game to 1.5 turnovers a game. That needs to be higher. They need to make him more uncomfortable. And you've seen at times when they put pressure, when they blitzed him, when they've trapped him, that's when he's had some of these turnovers. So you need to do more of that. Right now, the approach to Ant, especially in fourth quarters and big moments, is not working. And I think they need to mix it up and be a bit more unpredictable on that end. Adjustment number 4 is play the bench more. And I know this is counterintuitive, especially coming off of the second half of game 4. I'm not sure JJ is going to listen to this one, but the bench, if you actually look at the plus minus throughout the series, and of course the bench is playing less. So I think if they were playing more, they probably would have a worse plus minus. But if you look at in terms of ranking the rotation guys by plus minus, the bench guys are closer to the top of the list. And I think Vando, Goodwin, and Gabe all bring different values defensively. And I think the key here is probably definitely not to play all 3 together, and maybe not even 2 together, but similar to the way they should have approached game 4 in the second half in terms of mixing in one, keeping the other 4 guys, but like rotating the three bench guys in the second half, or how they should have done it, I think that's how it can go moving forward of, okay, you got your five, you got the starting five, the closing five, you know who those guys are, but you can mix in Gabe and Vando and Goodwin and have four of the other guys on the floor still together, but just have that fifth spot rotating and between resting the other guys, but then also having a more defensive minded bench player, having a Banshee out there, right? Having a guy who's going to bring a certain level of energy and defensive versatility and rebounding, etc. So I think I've said this now several times over the past few days. Like, I think Vando and Goodwin should be in that like 10 to 12 minute range. I think you could argue even higher, but I'm trying to be realistic here with what JJ is likely going to do. So I think those two guys should be 10 to 12 minutes. Gabe should be somewhere between like 15 to 18 minutes. Maybe you bump up one of Goodwin and Vando, but somewhere in like that 38 to 42 minute range for the three of those players combined. I think that's a sweet spot in terms of how much you're using your bench. And I think doing that will help with the Lakers' energy and fatigue in these fourth quarters, because they have been tired. They have been gassed in running on fumes in all four fourth quarters. If you go back and watch all of them, Minnesota has looked fresher. They have had more energy, and there's a reason why they have won all four fourth quarters throughout this series. So I know it's a bit counterintuitive to play the bench more, especially coming off of JJ clearly not trusting anybody in game 4, but you move on. It's the playoffs. Sometimes you got to make some difficult decisions, some controversial decisions. And I think looking at game 5, if they can find the right times and the right rotation with the bench guys, which again, I think you can keep your primary guys on the floor and just continually rotate that fifth guy. And so let's say, for example, you start at the 5 and then you bring in Gabe for Austin, right? And then a little bit later, you bring in Vando for LeBron. And then you bring back in Austin, this time for Luka. Like you're trying to keep the core 5 guys on as much as possible. You should always have at least 3 of those guys on the floor at all times. But I think there's just a natural way to keep like Vando in for DFS or Rui or LeBron, Goodwin in for Austin or Luka or LeBron, keeping like the positional size going a little bit. Gabe for Austin. Like there's different ways to do it where it is making sense. You're keeping a certain level of offense. You're trying to bring two-way balance and you're keeping guys fresh. I think that's the biggest thing is if the Lakers could get to the fourth quarter and their guys are not hunched over playing 46 minutes and not having their legs, if it's a close game, like they can actually win it and out execute Minnesota. And assuming they are running an organized offense, assuming they're mixing things up with Ant, if they can find a way to buy some time, and again, it doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be everyone playing together, but just one of those guys on the floor and kind of rotating that, you can keep the starters fresh and having the juice to execute in crunch time and win game 5, win game 6, etc. And finally, adjustment number 5 is winning the possession battle. The Lakers have lost the possession battle in all 4 games so far, depending on how you deem it. But the Wolves have attempted more field goals in all 4 games. They have attempted more free throws in 3 of the 4 games. They have had fewer turnovers in all 4 games. And they have had more offensive rebounds in 2 of the 4 games and then tied the Lakers in 1 of the games. So the Wolves have had the advantages in terms of more shots, more free throws, fewer turnovers, more offensive rebounds. And those factors are giving them just more at-bats. So it's not always about them having the prettiest or most efficient offense, but it's more effective. And if you're taking more shots, you have more scoring opportunities. And that can be the difference in some of these 1 possession, 3 possession games. So again, I think it comes down to playing mistake-free basketball or as close to that as is possible. There are inevitably going to be mistakes that happen over the course of a game, but the Lakers have had far too many self-inflicted wounds. I'm talking about unforced turnovers, dribbling the ball off your foot, slipping, just coughing the ball up for no reason. So far too many unforced and just egregious, ridiculous turnovers that they need to clean up. They've missed layups. There's been at least like a half dozen or more layups that they have just blown that, like, under normal circumstances, they would not be missing. And just like they need to convert on those opportunities. And some of them have been open, some of them have been semi-contested, but I'm not even talking about the ones where like there's always the questionable ones where it looks like a foul or something. I'm not even talking about that, but like just point blank layups and bunnies that they have missed. You can't have that in a, again, 1 possession, 2 possession, 3 possession game. Defensive miscues, like there was one possession where Luka rotates out to the corner, but it was actually Jackson's rotation. So they both rotate out to the corner. Then Jackson has to then try to rotate out to the wing, and he's late. And then the Wolves get an open 3. I want to say that was Randall early in game 4, but that's got to be like that communication there, and everyone knowing their defensive assignments has to be better than it has been. And I would say largely it's been good. I think the Lakers have actually played good defense. I think the ball containment has been bad at times. I think the rim protection has been bad at times, but part of that's just they don't have the athleticism to stay in front of Ant in particular. They don't have the rim protection to deter Ant or Julius or Jaden from scoring at the rim. So part of it is just personnel, defensive limitations. But I think from a team perspective, they have largely done a lot of good things. It's just been some of these mistakes that they have to eliminate. And if they're going to make tough shots, if they're just going to beat you from a physicality perspective or an athleticism perspective, that is different. But you can't beat yourself with failing to know your assignments, your duties and responsibilities defensively in terms of rotations and who's supposed to be where. That stuff, they have to cut that out and sharpen that up a bit. They need to be more disciplined in general. I think there's been a lack of discipline outside of game 2, and even game 2 in the fourth quarter, it got a little bit shaky there. But the Lakers have not been as disciplined in these 4 games as they typically are. And I think that has really cost them and it has hurt them. And again, they have to win the possession battle or at least get close. They can still lose the possession battle and win a game because that's what happened in game 2. But their margin for error is much slimmer if they are losing the possession battle. So I think that's going to be a big thing to watch in game 5 is can they keep Minnesota off the offensive glass? Can they win the turnover battle? Can they get to the free throw line more? Can they take more shots? Like, can they swing some of these factors in their favor? And if they do that, if they change the starting lineup, if they run more organized and intentional offense, if they mix up their coverages against Ant, and if they play the bench a little bit more and just make sure they're rotating guys, staggering guys, and keeping guys fresh, if they do all that, they have a shot to win game 5, extend the series to game 6, then anything's possible, right? They go to Minnesota. There is some more pressure on Minnesota of like, if we lose this, we do not want to go back to LA for a game 7 where the Lakers would likely be favored just based on NBA history, home team, game 7. All the momentum is shifted in their favor. They've won a couple games in a row. Minnesota's back's against the wall. It's win or go home for both teams. But like for Minnesota, you have also the pressure of we don't want to blow a 3-1 lead. So I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think if the Lakers are to win game 5 and extend this series, they're going to have to do at least 3 of these 5 things, if not 4 or 5 of them. But that'll do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow with a vlog from games 3 and 4 in Minnesota and post-game coverage after game 5. I will talk to you then.